from a Christian standpoint, is voting for Mitt Romney the lesser of two evils? We're going to talk about that today with our guest, Roger Wrench, live here on The View from a Pew on KTIA, Iowa.
Let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
Let's get it started in here.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 855-244-0077. That's 855-244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, good afternoon. It is 4 minutes after the top of the hour, wherever you are. It's 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is the Tuesday edition of The View from a Pew. Whole special day today on this 16th day of October. Introduce my guests to you. First of all, we have Tom Coates. What? It's not Thursday. You're going to screw everybody up, Tom. Tom's here today, and you're going to be here on Thursday.
That's my plan, God willing.
And Army Brad is in. I've introduced you to Army Brad a couple times. He's kind of a new co-host here on the show. And and we've got, what's your name again? I keep forgetting. Father Tattoo is in the production studio. And he's been working diligently on our political campaign.
I'm excited about it, Mac. I'm sorry I missed the VP debate the other night, but
what's with that? You and Joe didn't ask you?
I didn't have enough time. We're going to have to make hay while the sun shines. We've got less than a month to go here, Mac.
I'm going to be there tonight for the presidential.
Okay,
but I'm in the back room. If I want to say anything, I have to raise my hand. And wait for Candy Crowley to call on me.
Well, and you don't get a follow-up.
Yeah.
And I don't get a follow-up?
No, that's the rules, I guess.
Well, now they changed the rules. Candy Crowley said she wasn't going to follow the rules, so they said, okay, well, we'll change the rules for her. I best not say anything. I'll just keep quiet. But I do think
when you say I best not say anything, it usually comes out later on.
Maybe. But, the three-way debates that we had back when H. Ross Perot was running were kind of interesting, both presidential and vice presidential. That made it a whole different dynamic with a three-way input.
But thanks to him, we got Bill Clinton.
Absolutely.
And then our special guest today is Roger Wrench, and Roger is a local Christian man and is a faithful listener to the show. And 2 weeks ago. On Thursday, when you and I, and who was the other guest?
Brian Leach.
Brian Leach, when we were on.
And we had Craig Robinson on that day.
And we had Craig Robinson, all right. And we were talking about how not voting for Romney and voting for a third party was as good as voting for Obama. And we had quite a conversation that day, and it disturbed Roger. Is that a fair way of saying it?
Yeah, a little bit.
You were disturbed by it. And you were kind enough to write us a 5-page single-space typed letter that kind of laid out where you felt, and you also emailed it to me. And I think my response back was, I'm not going to go back and forth on email. You come on the show and we'll talk about that. So we're going to get to that subject in just a little bit, but we need to go to Campaign 2012 headquarters. And this whole thing, and here. Don't listen for a second, Dan. Just close your ears. See, Tom and I know this is a farce. We know this McCoy for president and Coates for vice president, or the other way around. We know it's a farce, but it makes Junior feel good, okay? Because we've been giving Dan a hard time, and he's kind of in your corner on this thing, Roger. That he, as a Christian man and a devout Christian man, he cannot vote for Romney. And so the joke was, well, then write somebody in. And if you're going to write somebody in, make it somebody so good that if for some reason that guy would win, that you'd have a good candidate. Well, he didn't take my advice, and he's going to write me in. So you've had fun, and you've written campaign commercials, right? You got our first campaign commercial.
I'm anxious.
This one's not as good as I wanted it to be, but it's there.
Is this audio or audio video?
It's audio video, but I made it specifically for radio so that they got the gist.
All right. So for those of you watching online, watch your screen, and for those of you listening on the radio, here is the very first McCoy and Coates for President ad.
In Barack Obama's health care plan, he forced businesses to pay for abortions. Under Mitt Romney's instituted health care in the state of Massachusetts, they allowed for up to a $0 copay in state-funded abortion. J. Michael McCoy has never voted for or signed into law any pro-choice bill. How is Paul Ryan going to help reduce the deficit? He doesn't know. He hasn't checked the numbers. Barack Obama and Joe Biden have effectively quadrupled the deficit. Tom Coates is a proven fiscal conservative whose business is debt reduction. Don't call it a comeback, but this team is going to be moving forward. J. Michael McCoy and Tom Coates.
I'm J. Michael McCoy, and I'm running for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Americans who want better choices and the I'm not voting for any of these clowns super PAC.
Very well done.
Oh,
Very well
my,
done.
oh, my, oh, my.
Forward, yes.
We're here to see what we ought to do. And, we could do this. We have the technology to do this, as they said in so many years ago, but we could get a picture we could get Biden and Ryan and cut out different clips that they have and then put you in the middle in a podium and redo the whole vice presidential debate and change everything. But anyway.
I'd watch that.
That'd be fun. And we in no way want to encourage any of you to write any other name than the candidate that God lays on your heart that'll be the best leader of this country. And who that may be, well, hopefully by the end of today, you might have a better idea of that. And just so you know, Roger, and I have no way to prove this, but I think at 4 o'clock you'll agree, we haven't talked about this.
Okay.
Tom and I talked about this first time when he called up today, and I just invited Brad on the radio this morning.
Okay.
I read your letter and put it away. You got the letter in email, right?
I did.
You haven't even read
haven't
it.
seen the
Here,
letter.
let me put it over to you so you can have it for a second.
And Brian just got it this morning. He was out of town for several days.
Yeah.
So he hasn't even read it yet. So.
Yeah, so I don't want you to think for one moment that anybody in this room has a disadvantage over you or an advantage over you. Sure. Okay, and as I said, Father Tattoo's on your side. So as far as we know.
And he could cut us off.
He could, but he'd never have children again. All right. So first of all, I want my audience to get to know you a little bit, so we know who you are. Everybody knows who Tom is. They've gotten to know who Brad is over the years. They don't care about Dan, but we want to put you on the forefront. You are from where?
Originally from Gary, Indiana.
Oh wow,
part of Chicago.
How do we know Gary, Indiana? Well, there was a song, right?
From the Music Man, Gary, Indiana.
Your Iowa
Gary,
guy wrote
Indiana.
that song.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Dan Wilson? No.
Yeah.
Who was it? Wilson. Wasn't it Wilson?
Meredith
Wilson. There
Oh,
you
yeah.
go. Okay.
Yeah,
Moved to Kansas City when I was 8, and that's where I call home.
Okay.
And where I grew up. And since going to college and having a background in ministry, I've lived around in several different places: Florida, Kansas, Wisconsin, Chicago. Here the last 7 years, and Des Moines, loving it here. So
Okay.
and I have between my ex-wife and I and my current wife, we have 10 children altogether.
Toledo.
6 of which are adults.
Okay.
And we just had Trish and I just had our 2nd anniversary this last week.
Congratulations. I see her posts online. You're a newlywed.
Yep.
Now, when you were in the ministry, were you under any certain denomination?
Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Okay. And what was your passion? What was your gift that God gave you, your spiritual gifts?
Well, I worked in a variety of areas, but evangelism and teaching, probably the 2 main spiritual gifts that I have, and I've used those in a variety of settings, and I still do, even though I'm not doing it as a career, as a job. I still do a lot of music. I was a worship leader. I've done a lot of different things, but my passion is really outreach and evangelism, sharing my faith in Christ with people. And I've found that for me, I have more opportunity being out in the marketplace, being a self-employed business guy on my own than I ever did when I was in the church. Because when you're in the church, most of your time is spent with church people.
Right.
And so I, am loving being out and about in the community and enjoy those opportunities I have to share my faith.
Yeah, some of my best friends are heathens. So,
Yeah.
I enjoy. In fact, I think God has really molded me to be as comfortable around non-church people as church people. Now, I'm beginning to notice that the language that my friends use is really becoming unacceptable. Well, I shouldn't say that, because I always want to have love and tolerance as my number one goal, but just uncomfortable. And if I've got someone who continually takes the Lord's name in vain, I've gotten to the point now where I just ask my friends that I hang out with, do you mind not just, when I'm around? I don't mean to be better than anybody else, because, as you know, I'm the president of the Not a Good Enough Christian Club. But
I'm the vice president.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, I don't know. No, Tom's good enough. Don't worry about that. Tom's good enough. Okay, so you have 10 kids.
Yeah.
Between all of you. And how old's the oldest one?
Oldest is 25. Two of them are, and three of them are in college.
Okay.
And one's in grad school in Phoenix. One's at UNI. One is here locally at DMAC. And then I have a daughter graduating from high school, Southeast Polk, this year.
Okay.
And then we have 4 younger children, 10, 11, 14, and 15.
Man, your Thanksgiving table's got to be huge.
Yeah, I'm in round 2 of raising 4 kids. So
yeah.
And I'm grandparent age, I should be. So
yeah.
Trish and I joke about that all the time. We'll be 65 or 70 before all the kids are 18 adults.
Well, I'll give you props. I couldn't do that. When my wife and I got married, she wanted to have a second round of kids because we both had them from previous, and I said, And I went to the doctor and made sure there was no uh-ohs. So,
I understand.
Tell you a funny story. Well, I'll tell you. No, now I said it, I got to tell you. Some guy got a vasectomy and been dating this gal, and she comes up and yells, baby, and you're going to take care of it. He goes, That's a true story. Guy that I know.
Right.
So.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We won't go there.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Well, my only point on that is I always encourage the male to get a vasectomy because it's a lot easier on the body than it is for the wife to pump those anti-baby pills, the birth control pills into their body for 15, 20 years. That's not good on their body. I still believe someday they're going to link that to ovarian or breast cancer. I still think they will. All right.
Yeah, could be.
So what disciple are you most like?
Oh, wow. I've never been asked that question before. Probably Peter.
Peter?
I would guess. Stick my foot in my mouth all the time.
Okay.
Everybody picks Peter. I'm so tired of picking Peter.
Do they?
Yeah, they could pick the other Judas, not Judas Iscariot, but the other one. Nobody picks that guy.
Which one are you most like?
I think I picked Thomas.
Doubting Thomas.
I'm a big doubter. Yep.
Yeah, and I picked Saul. So who really wasn't an apostle, but that's the only guy I can relate to.
Arguably the one that God directly anointed too.
Yeah, knocked him right on the butt right there on the road. All right, and so what's your favorite? I don't want you to tell me chapter and verse your favorite part of the Bible, but what is your what are you passionate about within the Bible? What's your favorite things to read? I mean, are you a Psalms guy? Are you a Revelation guy? Are you an Exodus?
I'm more of I guess, an epistle guy.
Okay.
My favorite chapter is Philippians chapter 3, and not any particular verse, but the whole thing. Because I'm very much, I'm working towards being a motivational speaker and writer and inspiration, all that. And I just find a lot of things that Paul wrote in there. When you are down, you just keep on top of things, and you know that Christ is with you all the time. And forgetting what lies behind and moving toward what lies ahead. Some of those scriptures in that chapter really inspire and motivate me. And
so the letter to the Philippians.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah.
And what do you find not true in the Bible?
Not true in the Bible?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if there's anything I would find not true in the sense that Scripture is God's inerrant word. We believe that. But there are some things, some laws maybe in the Old Testament that, were done away with when Christ came to fulfill those laws, and we have new laws to follow in the New Testament.
The New Covenant.
So the New Covenant, yes.
All right, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss voting this fall. And this should be a great conversation because there's a lot of Christians out there who don't feel they can vote for Mitt Romney, even though they typically would vote for the conservative. And where does that leave the presidential campaign exactly 3 weeks from today? We'll talk to Roger, Tom, Army Brad, and Father Tattoo. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and if I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Right here on KTIA, powered by WebcastOneLive.com. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
It's like they want to get hit.
Need a body shop?
Minor Wreck Express saves you time and money.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Have you ever been told you're not a good enough Christian? Well, we have too. Join the conversation. Call 855-244-0077. Now here's your host, president of the Not a Good Enough Christian Club, J. Michael McCoy.
Welcome back. 21 minutes after 3 o'clock on this 16th day of October in the Lord's year 2012. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is the Tuesday edition of The View from a Pew. Glad to have you here today. Tom Coates in the house, along with Army Brad and Father Tattoo running the ship. And Roger Wrench is our special guest today. And Roger is a local businessman who is a devout Christian. And last Thursday, when Tom and I and Brian Leach and Craig Robinson began to talk about how we should vote in the upcoming election, of course, the three of us, being deep in wisdom, no, I'm kidding, felt that there was no other choice. I mean, Romney was the only choice. And we got a nice letter from Roger and a couple of nice emails that says he disagrees. And I thought, well, rather than having this conversation fly back and forth on the email system, we'd ask Roger to come in and be a part of the show today. And so Roger is here. And you two, Father Tattoo and Roger, you kind of on the same island.
Oh, I don't know his island. I didn't read his letter.
You didn't read the letter?
No, I didn't read the letter.
Okay. So let me just ask you a couple questions. Are you registered as a voter?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
As a
Republican.
Mm-hmm. And who'd you vote for last 4 years? The first
4 years ago, McCain.
Mm-hmm. And have you ever voted for a Democrat?
No, I don't think so.
So who do you think you're going to vote for in 3 weeks?
I know who I'm going to vote for in 3 weeks, unless, I don't know, you're running a close second now, so
No.
with your campaign. But
but I can go to the internet and look at the latest Rasmussen polls. And let me see here, Tom. Romney's at 57%, Obama's at 42%, and you and I are at, well, we have 2 votes.
You know, if you don't knock this off, I'm just going to start playing your ad repeatedly to get more exposure.
Yeah, well, don't worry about it. People are smarter than that. So, will you tell me who you're going to vote?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm voting for the guy that I caucus captained for and stood up in front of 300 people and said why I'm voting for him, Rick Santorum.
So you're going to write in Santorum?
I'm writing in a vote, yep.
All right. And do you think Santorum can win?
Well, I think he could win. Yes, I think he's a very viable person to win.
Sure, but will he win?
Most likely not, because most people are not going to just write in enough votes. You
Right.
know, even if I know a lot of Santorum supporters who will not vote for Mitt Romney, but whether they, like me, will write Santorum's name in, I have no clue.
Okay.
So,
and are you 50?
51.
All right, you're 51. I'm 53. Tom is eternally 21. He's like Dave Clark or Dick Clark.
I'm the senior spokesman here today.
Yeah, and Brad, you're 48.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you're 12.
32. Yeah, add another 20 years on that.
You're a smart enough guy to know what the consequences are going to be if there's a lot of devout Christians who write in Mickey Mouse, McCoy, Santorum, or whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to elect Barack Obama.
No, I'm not going to go elect him.
Well,
The
but
people
that's
that
the
vote for him will
consequences
elect
of
him.
your action.
Have you ever played with an abacus? Because if you take it and turn it right in the middle and put all the beads in the middle and vote for them, the beads in the middle don't count for anybody.
Yeah, but the consequence of a two-party system.
It's not a two-party system. You're pretending it is. Here's
the thing.
democratic system,
There's this
Mac.
premise, and this is part of the issue that I had with you guys in that show 2 weeks ago.
Sure.
What I heard Tom say at least a couple times, and it might have been you and Brian too that said it, was that anybody who's a Christian, you have no reason not to vote for Mitt Romney. Did you remember saying that, Tom, a couple times, or something similar? I don't want to quote you.
I think something to that effect, Roger.
Sure. And, I take issue to that. There are a lot of reasons, good reasons, not to vote for Mitt Romney. Number one, this is a representative form of government that we live in. What that means is I want to choose the person who best represents me. I'm not responsible for the outcome. I'm not responsible for the number of votes that candidate or whatever other candidate may get. I'm responsible for my vote. I have one vote, one choice. I stood up at my caucus and I told people, vote your conscience. Don't vote for the person who has the most money, who's the most, quote, electable, who the media is giving the most attention. Vote for the person you believe represents you. If we all did that, we would not be in this mess that we're in.
Right, but
I was going to say, I think the problem is that very few people are going to actually do that. A vast minority. And when that vast minority does do what the founders envisioned, then what we have now, it helps probably the person that you would put at the bottom of your list end up being elected again.
And I just don't believe, I decided 4 years ago, if I'd have listened to the same show you guys had 2 weeks ago in the McCain-Obama election, I would have been sitting here nodding my head in approval to everything you guys were saying. During the last few years, I've come to look at it from a different perspective, based on my own Bible study, based on some other perspectives I've heard, based on looking at the track record of GOP moderates, I call them liberals, who lose again and again and again because they are not motivating the base of the party, which is evangelical Christians. I believe that when we vote for the lesser of two evils, we drum down the standard a little bit, and we bring it down and down and down to the point that this man who has been elected the Republican nominee, Mitt Romney, wouldn't have even been elected as a Democrat nominee 3 decades ago. He is not a conservative in any way. I don't consider him a Republican. I look at this election as a Democratic primary. And but take the names out for a minute. What I wanted to do today, my main concern when I listened to your show 2 weeks ago was not that you guys are voting for Mitt Romney, because probably the vast majority of voting Christians are going to vote for him, as you are. My main concern was I didn't hear a single scripture in that show. I didn't hear a biblical principle discussed. And I think that we could all agree that as Christians, we should have a biblical reason for voting the way that we do. Would you guys agree with that?
Well, I think there's a biblical reason for everything we do.
Okay.
But
And I
you're
would agree
telling
with
me
that.
there's no biblical reason to vote for Mitt Romney.
No, I think there may be some things that Mitt Romney believes and
Okay.
has done that I certainly would agree with.
I mean, let's start with our party embraces God, and Obama's party denied him 3 times publicly on the front of the stage.
Your party does not embrace God. Show me a godly man there. They elected a Mormon. He's a cult leader, Mac.
No.
Don't say lies
No,
like this.
no.
This
You
is a
don't-
lie.
You don't get to go there.
Yes, I do. He's a cult leader.
No, he's
I just
not.
did it. Again, a cult leader.
Well, he's not.
Mormonism is a cult.
No, it's not.
It's a horrible cult.
No, it's not.
Who's predicated off the very first sin that caused the fall of man, which is to be like God, and we cannot be like God.
Okay, whether or not you agree with Dan on that, that is not even a factor in my choice whether or not to vote for Mitt Romney. His Mormonism, I disagree with Brian's conclusion that he shared a couple weeks ago, but that's neither here nor there. What I think we need to do is a different approach and look in the Bible, to the actual Bible, and say, what instructions are there for choosing leaders in Scripture?
Okay, what are
and
they?
I've
Lay
gone
some
through.
out for
All
us.
right, well, let's go specifically. We
Tom,
mentioned
before we
you know,
get into the Bible verses,
I've got,
do you have any?
of course I do. Mac and everybody here, right after I got Roger's email, I happened to come across, coincidentally, a piece right on target. Now, Roger, maybe you and Mac have heard of a guy named Stephen McDowell. Have you heard of him?
I haven't.
I haven't
Have
either.
you heard of a group called Providence Foundation?
Yes.
All
I
right,
think I might have heard of it.
All right, he is the president of the Providence Foundation. It's an organization that's been around for near 30 years. It's a Christian educational organization whose mission is to train and network leaders to transform the culture for Christ and to teach all citizens how to disciple nations. I could go on, and he's got a long list of credentials. He's written dozens of Christian books and given lectures, and he's got a lot of letters behind his name. And so he's a man that is of some significance and some importance. And he penned a piece just the other day called Obama, Romney, Other. Who should Christians vote for in the 2012 election? And he starts off by saying, and it goes to Roger's point. And Roger, I was struck with your volume, for one thing, but also your thoughts and your processes of going through this. And so I'm like Mac. I agree, and we're all Christian brothers, and we can disagree on some things. We shouldn't be disagreeable, but this is, and I think your question is right on, and it's answered right here in this article.
Which question are you referring to that I've asked?
All right, you've answered, let's give the biblical foundation for the support of Mitt Romney, and you say repeatedly, and the tone of your letter is, what's the difference? I would spend my vote on two people that are essentially different. And what he says is, how do two main presidential candidates align with God's standard, which is what your question is. And he says, I will only be comparing Obama and Romney since those are the only two choices, the two main parties. There is no real difference in these two men, then it doesn't matter if you vote for a third party or not vote at all. But if there is a difference, not voting for the better of these two candidates is really voting for the worst one. And he goes on and he takes the perspective, guys, that when Moses told the children of Israel to select from amongst them those who would govern them, he set forth a number of biblical qualifications. He said, you shall select all out of the people, able men who fear God, men of truth who hate dishonest gain, choose wise and discerning and experienced men. This is in Deuteronomy 1 through chapter 1 through verse 13. He put forth three general qualifications for governing: fear of God, Christian character, and biblical worldview.
That's one of my verses.
All right.
Yep.
Are you with me so far, Roger?
Yep.
Okay.
I disagree with this premise, though.
Which premise?
The premise that if you don't vote for one of those two people, you're in effect voting for, Obama or whoever.
And I disagree with that he fears God.
Only, guys, if you believe, according to what he writes, that there isn't any significant difference between those candidates. And so if you vote for candidate A or candidate B, you're going to have essentially the same kind of a person and the same kind of result. If you believe that, then you're fine to throw your vote away or not cast it at all. But if you believe, and he lays the case out in quite a few pages here, that on those 3 points, yes, perhaps Mitt Romney is not the ideal candidate, Roger, as you've said, but there are...
From a Christian standpoint.
Yes, from a Christian
we
standpoint.
haven't identified what that would be.
Not a business standpoint, because there's no question that Romney is the business candidate.
And I would agree with that.
But from those 3 perspectives, he lays it out, and if we've got time, I'll go into those 3. And he certainly finds clear distinctions between Romney and Obama when it comes to those 3 characteristics that Moses gave the people of Israel.
And what were those 3 again?
All right, the 3 points of characteristics, he put forth 3. Fear of God.
Okay.
Christian character.
Okay.
And biblical worldview.
Okay. Okay.
You want me to start into those?
No, because we're gonna hit a break here in
Okay.
about 60 seconds. So those are the things that Moses said. Now, Moses wouldn't have said Christian character.
But those are the 3 points that he was making. He was laying out qualifications for choosing men who would govern this nation of Israel. And those are the 3 that the author says comes down to deciding if you should go for this person.
Okay.
And you, Roger, I think properly has laid out certain standards. And he says if this person gets close to these standards, then he's an acceptable leader. And the question, I think, is, at least that we're being asked today, is to define whether these men come closer to some of these principles and whether we should advocate or not supporting them in this November election.
All right. Tom Coates is our guest, along with Army Brad, Roger Wrench in the house, and Father Tattoo. What is the question? Is Romney a good enough Christian to lead this nation? Is that what it comes down to? We'll continue our conversation. 26 minutes left today, live on The View from a Pew.
Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
It's 3:38, 22 before the top. Salem Radio Network News at the top. And then we're going to have True Blue with Pastor Michael Mudloff from 4 to 4:30 today. So thanks for being here. Roger Wrench is in the house along with Tom Coates, Army Brad, and Father Tattoo. We're having the conversation about who is the best candidate. What does the Bible say who the best candidate is? What character, what qualifications? And you talked about how Moses talked about a good biblical worldview. They feared God. They had a good godly character. And Roger, you wanted to come back with, and you're going to go first here with some Bible verses that talks about how we're to choose a candidate.
Yeah, and one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys 2 weeks ago, I tried to call in, but my phone went screwy, was how much evil can we support and still be faithful to God? Okay,
Well,
if God's
support?
word to support, go along with, tolerate in a candidate that we're going to vote for.
What does Jesus say about
For instance,
Caesar?
if a candidate is clearly, now all of us are sinners. None of us can measure up to God's glory. Any candidate we vote for is going to be, in a sense, the lesser of two evils because we're all evil, we're all sinful. But when a candidate publicly takes positions and has on record decisions and choices that violate God's moral law, and Mitt Romney has done that on two issues that I believe are central and core to the GOP platform, life and marriage, and he advocates those things, the killing of children.
He doesn't advocate that.
Well, he's made it available in his state-mandated healthcare program in Massachusetts. He's appointed all kinds of Planned Parenthood people in his administration. He does, and he was pro-choice for a long time.
And does Obama do the same thing?
Yes. But
okay, so both men. If we're on abortion and we're on gay, both men lose.
Yes.
Right?
And that, to me, is foundational because those are two core moral issues that, to me, define whether I can trust a man in
but
leadership.
you only have two choices here.
No, we have many choices. See, that's, again, there's
that's
that.
throwing your vote away.
No, you're not. My vote is my vote. I can vote. Why do we have more than one? There's 7 guys on the ballot, Mac, plus you can write in anybody. There's 7 guys out there.
So do you really believe in your heart of hearts that Obama won't win if Romney's not going to win? Do you think Santorum can win?
No, I don't think Santorum will win. But
Okay,
I think
if Romney doesn't win, who's going to win?
I think if Romney doesn't win, if Romney doesn't win, most likely Obama. But that's not how I vote. The Bible says to walk by faith, not by sight. What I can see and think is realistic.
Okay.
I don't make my vote on the basis of the results.
So the Bible says that you shouldn't get drunk.
Right.
You don't go to Wells Fargo Arena to events where beer is sold. You don't shop at Hy-Vee.
I don't drink.
Okay, but
not
why
that
would
I
you
think it's necessarily a sin to have a beer, but I don't.
Okay, but why would you support those businesses that support the drunkards? That's all we're asking you to do is to support the lesser of two evils here.
I'm not choosing to support them to lead our country. They're a business. They're opening it up for anybody to go see a game.
But you're still publicly endorsing those products that some would say promote drunkardness.
You could say that, yeah.
Okay. So here's my point, and I love you, brother. But where do you stop?
And that's a good question. That's where my question is, how much...
I think the President of the United States is a darn good place to stop.
What did the Founding Fathers say about the kind of people that were qualified to lead this nation? Now, if you look back to early American history, every state had its own constitution and statement. Do you know that it was required for men to be a Christian to be qualified to run for public office? You can.
Okay,
I've got a quote from the North Carolina Constitution.
I
here.
understand, and that,
Okay.
but that didn't have
They
anything
said
to
that-
do with 2012.
They said that only men of virtue, men of moral character, and I could quote you numerous quotes from founding fathers that talk about the importance of believing in Christ. And I'm not saying that we should only vote for Christians. I'm saying that we should vote for people who are willing to advance righteousness in this unrighteous land. Let me ask you an important question here, both you guys. Let's assume that voting for the lesser of two evils is the right way, the right thing to do, the godly thing to do, the faithful thing to do for a moment. Okay. If that were true, how would we see evidence of God's confirmation in our land? Would our country be becoming more moral as a result or less moral?
I've got one. You want to take that?
Well, I'd like to take a lot of things here, Mac. Obviously, I think with proper leadership, we head back towards the path of righteousness and we revive the nation. For instance, on Santorum, if you're going to write for Santorum, I heard Santorum the other day making a good case for Mitt Romney. I mean, the man that you're going to vote for wants you to vote for Mitt Romney.
I know he does.
The life issue, Roger, which you've mentioned, I think is as defining an issue as we can come up with. Mm-hmm. And Mac and I had conversations. You probably heard us. We had numerous interviews and conversations with Mitt Romney 4.5, 5 years ago. And what he told the Des Moines Register was essentially what he told us, and I'll quote it to you. And this goes to this author's, research into this life issue, which he says is the most important issue. I was effectively pro-choice when I first ran for office. When I became governor of Massachusetts, the first time a bill came to me that dealt with life, I simply could not side with it. He said he researched it. You remember that, Mac?
Mm-hmm.
He said, I researched it, and he said, with taking a life. And I decided it was life at that point. It was a medical question. It wasn't abortion. It had to do with the medical issue of the fetal tissue.
Correct.
And I came on the other side. And every bill that came to my desk, every issue that related to protect the sanctity of life, I came down on the side of life. In the latter part of his term as governor, he did come down on the side of life. Mm-hmm. And since then, he's been consistent in saying that he was pro-life. Now, on the other hand, we've got a man, I don't even think it's arguable, I'll throw the word arguable out, as the most pro-abortion, pro-death man to ever serve, probably in the U.S. Senate, certainly in the Illinois Senate, that, Mac, you pointed out rightfully, had voted different times. I don't know whether there's three or
three
four.
Three times.
But to allow a baby that was the recipient of a botched late-term abortion to be murdered outside the womb.
Right.
There was nothing that he wouldn't stoop to in the area of killing life. Now, you contrast his point,
right,
and he has done a number of things that this author goes through since he'd become president to make the taking of life here and overseas much more available to the ghouls that practice this kind of trade, the Planned Parenthood types and so forth. Romney has said, and he's gotten flack for it, that he would take away the funding of Planned Parenthood. He would do what he could to make the life case much more realizable in this country. And I do think, guys, that since Roe v. Wade was passed back in the early 70s, this nation has done, as you suggested, Roger, come much away from God's principles. I think we have been sacrificed and we have been corrupted on this so-called choice mantra. Now, right now, they want to say that Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan are anti-woman. They're anti-feminist. Because they want to make abortion much less. Now, he does give out the options we talked about on the show, Mac, exceptions for rape, incest, threat to a woman's life. We know that's only 1 to 2% of the abortions that are performed.
It's 0.3%. But it's not even 1%.
It's a very small number. We know that. However you're counting it up, he does give those out. And we've talked about that. But that's a far cry from the position of Barack Obama. So just on that issue alone, Roger, and this also details the type of Supreme Court justices that he would put in. Contrasted with the Elena Kagans that Barack Obama has put in, the type of Scalia, Thomas, those type of Supreme Court justices that are likely to be the ones that Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan would pick versus the type of extreme pro-death Supreme Court justice. That alone, to me, disqualifies anybody from standing on the sidelines as you're proposing to do and say, I'm going to abdicate my responsibility as a Christian to vote.
Okay, we're coming up on our last break. We're coming back. Roger Wrench is our guest. Tom Coates, Army Brad, Father Tattoo, and we're here live for you. And thanks for listening to 99.3 KTIA, Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
It's like they want to get hit.
Need a body shop?
Minor Wreck Express saves you time and money.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Come on now, let's reason together. The phone lines are open, and it's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
Okay, we're going to jump right back into this. Tom, you said something that Roger wanted to respond to. Tom, why don't you say what that was again?
And I'm going to summarize here, ladies and gentlemen. My contention is that the life issue is of preeminent importance, especially as you're going to define a person that follows the Christian principles that we initially laid out to follow. And it is for the author of the Stephen McDowell that I talked about. And what his case, and I made it just briefed it down, is that there is a dramatic difference between the life issue on the Mitt Romney position and the Barack Obama position.
Right.
A stark difference.
Yeah.
And you were going to respond, Roger.
Yes, there is no question that there is a difference between the two candidates on that issue as well as fiscal issues and some other things.
And the gay marriage. He said that he thinks marriage is between a man and a woman.
Well, I don't believe he does. And he forced it upon his own state. My contention, though, is that Mitt Romney has been on every side of every issue again and again and again. His own campaign manager called him the etch-a-stitch candidate because he switches back and forth.
Okay.
You never really know what he believes. There are a lot
Hasn't he been consistent since his position that shifted in 2007? I don't know in the last 5 years that we have seen
We've had no flip-flopping since
position
2007.
on life. Let's focus on life. That's what we're talking about right now, Roger. I don't believe there's ever been a shift on either his statements or his words. And again, he did come down in the latter days and months of his term as governor of Massachusetts and did defend the life issue.
Yeah.
And I don't see him wavering at that point. I know you say he shifted his position, but at one point, Roger, and I go back further than 5 years, at one point I was a fiscal conservative, but I wasn't a Christian, and I saw nothing wrong with eliminating life and some of these issues. Now, I made a change, and I've not shifted from that change. But now, am I going to be pilloried because 30 years ago I was a heathen and I supported abortion at that point?
Okay, Roger, go ahead.
To me, this is not about personalities, Obama or Romney. It's about the whole concept of the lesser of two evils, which is what most people, most Christians have voted for the last several decades. Let's just look at the track record of that, okay? How has it worked for the Republican Party when moderate candidates run? Let's look at national elections and state elections. Most of the time, and I don't know what the average actual number is, they lose. They win consistently when they run strongly on Republican Party platform issues, life, marriage, fiscal responsibility, and some other things. For instance, Romney, he designed the government health care program that Obama has picked up.
We know that. We know that.
The issue is,
that Obama's better than Romney.
Record? No.
Well, but that's what's going to happen. See, Roger, I appreciate your speech.
I'm not able to. You guys want to continue to go back to compare Obama to Romney. That's not why I'm here today. I'm trying to say, what are God's standards? With God, let's ask it in a different way. Can you pray this prayer? Dear God, I thank you for the opportunity to live in this country of ours where we get to elect our leaders. I know that you want me to choose men and women who stand strongly for righteousness and goodness and what is good for all citizens in our country. And, I don't believe Mitt Romney is, pro-life, and I don't believe this, but he's good. He's a good businessman. So I'm going to give him my vote. That's kind of what we're doing. We're saying, forget about this. Because if you look at the guy's record, it's anything but conservative. But yet we keep going, but he's not as bad as the other guy.
What about the same prayer you just said, and then you say, and God, it was your will that I had the choice between two men, Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. He's a sovereign God, right? He put those
You're assuming there's only two men there again.
You know what? Listening to all the arguments, I agree with everything that has been said. And in my time in the Army, I supported your right to vote for whoever you wanted to, whether you write in Santorum or McCoy or Coates or whoever. And if that's what you want to do, awesome. That's the beauty of being in this country.
And there's the opinion of the person in this room that counts to me, is the guy that fought for my freedom.
Well,
that is important.
Fight. I just
okay. So and then your opinion is,
and I also agree with what Tom said, and from actually watching and listening to what the candidates said, I agree with you. We don't have the two best choices that any of us could find. If we could pick the perfect candidate, that wouldn't be either of these two men. But we have moved incrementally to the left on these issues, and we're going to have to do it coming back to what is right in my heart and in my mind. And we have to take this little steps, and Romney is a little step toward what is right.
That's what they've been saying for the last 30 years, and it doesn't work. It goes the other direction, and that's my point.
Well, then we need to make sure that what he has said in the last 5 years, he sticks to.
We hold him accountable.
We hold him accountable.
I agree with that.
I want to ask Roger a quick question. You used 30 years. Now, you're actually encompassing, you think that there wasn't any significant difference between Jimmy Carter and our own Ronald Reagan? Is
big
that
differences.
You go back 30 years, you're talking about that time frame. If you had been sitting in that seat 30 years ago, would you have said, I don't see any difference between Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter, I'm not going to vote?
No. I'm speaking of the time frame since the, quote, evangelical right, the right, what they call the Christian right, has become a large influence in our nation.
Would you have voted for Pat Robertson?
When I don't remember what year he ran. So who else was in the race?
He won the Iowa caucuses.
Who else was in the race? It was Reagan and...
Yeah. But you would have voted for Pat Robertson because he was the best Christian there.
I was 19 years old. I didn't even think I knew who Pat Robertson was at that time. So
it's hard to go back there, Mac. One thing the author brings down is in his judgment, he said that we're moving left, just as Brad said. in this nation. And he said, unfortunately, we have accelerated under Barack Obama in all the different categories looked at, and that we're going 100 miles an hour over the cliff. He said, maybe Romney's not the perfect one, but he said he slows the train down to 20 miles an hour, and it may give us time to awaken our civil duties and restore godly leadership in the nation. If we continue to go 100 miles an hour down the track, we go over the cliff, not only in a debt standpoint. I didn't get a chance to talk about the debt issue. I think that's a godly issue, a Christian issue too. I think the stewardship principles of Christianity are defied by this bunch of collectivists, these socialists that want to spend trillions of dollars of money that will be run our future generations on over the cliff and put into a position of destitution. I didn't even get a chance to go into there, but Mac, what would you say?
I would say that you pray every day that God's will be done. God's will was Mitt Romney represented the conservative voters of this country. So you have a choice between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. God cannot be behind Santorum. He can't win. So God is either behind Romney or Obama. Romney or Obama. That's our only two choices. That's who God's will put on the ticket. Two men, Romney and Obama. We're out of time. Roger, thank you very much.
Well, thanks
Maybe
for having
we'll
me.
have this conversation again here before the election. Army Brad, thanks for being here. And Tom, as always, thank you for being here.
My running mate.
We will see you tomorrow, and True Blue is next on KTIA.